The day I found him, I made a vow. I didn't know his name. I didn't know where he came from. But I looked at that tiny, trembling face and I whispered, "You are mine now." I had nothing. And I gave him everything. My name is Sunita. And this is the story of how a mother's love became the most painful thing she ever survived. My marriage to Mayank lasted less than 2 years. That's all we got. 2 years of small happiness, of shared meals and quiet evenings and plans for a future that never arrived. Then one evening, a phone call. A truck. A curve in the road that Mayank never came back from. They said he didn't suffer. I'm not sure they told me that for his sake or for mine. What came after the funeral was worse than the grief itself. My in-laws had never truly accepted me. I had sensed it from the beginning, the way my mother-in-law looked at me during festivals, like I was furniture that didn't match the room. But after Mayank died, the pretense ended. They called me inauspicious. A bad omen. They said I had brought death into their house simply by existing in it. Within 3 weeks of burying my husband, they pushed me out of the door with nothing but the clothes on my back and a small cloth bag of belongings. I stood on the street outside their gate for a long time. I didn't know where to go. I had no money, no family nearby, no plan. Just an empty road stretching in both directions and a grief so heavy I could barely breathe through it. For weeks, I survived on the charity of strangers. I slept on temple steps, under the overhang of a market stall, anywhere that offered a roof or a shadow. I begged. I'm not ashamed to say it now, though it burned me alive at the time. Every outstretched hand felt like a humiliation. Every coin dropped in my palm felt like a reminder of how completely my life had collapsed. And then, on an ordinary afternoon that I will remember for the rest of my life, everything shifted. I was sitting on the steps of the Shiv temple near the old bazaar, my empty stomach folded in on itself, watching the pigeons peck at stray grains of rice on the courtyard floor. And that's when I heard it. A sound that cut right through all my numbness. A child crying. Not the whining cry of a pampered child. This was something rawer. Something desperate. The sound of a creature that doesn't understand why no one is coming. I turned and saw him. He was tiny. 2 years old at most, wobbling on unsteady legs, his face streaked with dirt and tears, his clothes filthy in a way that told me he hadn't been cleaned in days. He was looking around with those wide, terrified eyes, searching for a face he recognized and finding none. Something inside me cracked open. I got up immediately and went to him. I picked him up and he clutched my kurta with both fists like he'd been waiting for me specifically, like we were two lost people who had finally found each other. I looked around, asking everyone nearby, "Does anyone know this child? Does anyone know where his parents are?" Nobody knew. Nobody claimed him. I spent an hour going from person to person, shop to shop, asking. I even went to the small police chowki at the corner of the market and reported the abandoned child. They took the information down and told me to leave him at a government shelter. I looked at that officer. Then I looked at the boy in my arms, who had finally stopped crying because he had buried his face in my neck and fallen into the exhausted sleep of a child who has been frightened for too long. I walked out and did not go to the shelter. I know how that sounds. I had no home. I had no money. I was begging on temple steps just to eat. What business did I have taking responsibility for another life? But some decisions aren't made with the mind. They're made in a place deeper than logic. When I held that child, something I thought had died with Mayank, some core part of me that still wanted to be alive, woke up and said, "He needs you. And you need him." I named him Pawan. A name that means wind, free, untamable, belonging to no one and everyone at once. It was the temple priest, Pandit Rameshwarji, who saved us both. He had been watching me for days, sitting on those steps with the child, begging quietly, keeping myself small. One afternoon he came and sat beside me. "Daughter," he said, which was already more kindness than I had been shown in months. A woman alone with a small child on the street. This is not right. This is not safe. I have a room behind the temple. Small, but clean. And the temple needs someone to sweep the courtyard, wash the floors, clean the prayer hall. I can't pay much. But it's honest work, and you and the boy will have a roof. I didn't even try to stop the tears. That room became our world. 8 feet by 10 feet, a single window that looked out onto a neem tree, a thin mattress, and a small kerosene stove. I have lived in bigger places that felt emptier. That room, with Powen sleeping curled against my side, felt like the first real home I'd had since my uncle died. I worked hard. I cleaned that temple every single day like it was a palace. I polished the brass lamps until they blazed. I swept the courtyard before dawn so the morning devotees would walk in on clean stone. I did it with gratitude so deep it hurt, because I understood what it meant to have nothing, and I never wanted to forget. And Powen grew. That uncertain, frightened little boy grew into a tall young man with sharp eyes and an easy smile. I watched it happen year by year, season by season. His first proper words, his first day of school, the first time he came home with a good mark on a test, and I cried in the kitchen where he couldn't see me. I gave him everything I had. Not just food and shelter, but love, the kind that doesn't keep score, the kind that asks nothing back. I told him the truth early, because I believed in truth. I sat him down when he was old enough to understand, and I said, "Powen, you did not come from my womb. But you came to me when I needed you as much as you needed me. You are my son in every way that matters. Never doubt that." He hugged me and said, "You're my ma. That's enough." For a while, I believed him. The changes came gradually, the way damage usually does, not all at once, but in small increments that you explain away because you don't want to see the truth. The wrong friends, first. Boys with too much time and too little direction, who laughed too loud and contributed nothing. Then the late nights. Then the smell of alcohol on his breath when he came home, light at first, then heavier, then undeniable. I tried everything. I reasoned. I pleaded. I prayed. I told him what I had sacrificed, not to manipulate him, but because I thought if he truly understood, it would reach something in him. I told him about the temple steps, the begging, the cold nights before Pandit Ji gave us the room. I told him I had been hungry so he wouldn't be. He looked at me and said, "So what? You want a medal for that?" I didn't answer. I just went to the kitchen and stood at the window until the shaking in my hands stopped. Pandit Ji counseled patience. "He's young," he said. "He's lost. Don't push him further away with anger. Love him through it." And I tried. I truly tried. Because that's what mothers do. We keep trying long after any rational person would have stopped. But some things can't be loved away. One evening, Powen came home drunk, not mildly, stumbling drunk, but gone, barely able to stand. I met him at the door. I was tired, the kind of tired that goes all the way into your bones, and I said something I shouldn't have. I raised my hand and slapped him. I'm not proud of it. He was 20 years old and my son, and I hit him because I didn't know what else to do with the despair. He turned slowly and looked at me with eyes I didn't recognize. "Don't you ever," he said, very quietly, "touch me again." Then he pushed me. Not hard enough to hurt, but hard enough to make his meaning clear. Then he walked past me and collapsed on the floor, asleep before he hit the ground. I sat beside him on that floor for a long time, watching his chest rise and fall, trying to find the child I had carried on my hip at the temple of Shiv. He was there somewhere underneath all this ruin. I was sure of it. I had to be sure of it. What I didn't know, what I couldn't have imagined, was that the change in him I would witness in the coming weeks had nothing to do with love. Nothing to do with my prayers reaching him. It was a performance. Cold, calculated, deliberate. He had seen something. Pandit G, in the course of his duties, had opened the donation box one afternoon in the inner hall. It was a heavy iron chest, padlocked, filled with the offerings of hundreds of devotees. Money given in faith, in gratitude, in desperate hope. Pawan had walked in at that moment, seen the box open, seen the thick bundles of notes inside. And something in him had made a decision. The transformation was remarkable. I should have been suspicious. I was too grateful to be suspicious. He woke up early and helped me sweep the courtyard. He sat with Pandit G and learned prayers he had never shown interest in before. He ran errands without being asked. He stopped drinking, or appeared to. He smiled at me the way he had when he was small, and I fooled myself into believing that some essential goodness had finally broken through. You see, Pandit G said to me, beaming. I told you. Love always finds a way back. I pressed my palms together and thanked God. I genuinely thanked God. For weeks, Pawan worked his way into the complete trust of both of us. He made himself indispensable, always present, always helpful, always humble. He observed carefully. He noted where Pandit G kept the key to the temple's main door. He learned the routine of when the priest retired for the night and when the courtyard went dark and silent. He was patient. I'll give him that. Terrifyingly patient. On the night he chose, there was a light rain. I remember the sound of it on the tin roof of our room, steady and soft, the kind of rain that makes you feel safe. I fell asleep earlier than usual, exhausted from a full day of extra cleaning before a festival. Pandit G had gone to his quarters at the back of the compound after locking the main temple doors, placing the key in its usual spot. A small brass hook on the wall of the prayer hall's anteroom, a spot only the three of us knew. Pawan waited until the compound was silent. Then he moved. He took the key from its hook with steady hands. He opened the temple doors without making a sound. He walked through the prayer hall in the dark, past the idols garlanded with marigolds, past the brass lamps still glowing with the last of their oil, past every sacred thing that had sheltered us for 18 years. He opened the donation box. He filled a cloth sack with everything inside, the devotees' offerings, the trust of an entire community, the future repairs of that temple, the money set aside for the children's festival. And then he walked out. He didn't leave a note. He didn't look back at the room where his mother was sleeping. He just disappeared into the dark and the rain, and that was the last any of us saw of him for weeks. The morning discovery broke something in me that I'm not sure ever fully healed. Pandit G found the empty box first. He came to my room and I saw his face, and I already knew something was catastrophically wrong before he said a word. When he told me, I felt the floor tilt beneath my feet. I kept saying, no, not Pawan. There must be a mistake. Someone must have broken in. Because the alternative, that my son, my child, the boy I had carried on my hip through years of hunger and hardship, was simply not something I could assemble into a thought. The neighbors were less kind. The story moved through the area like fire through dry grass. People who had smiled at me for years now stood at their gates and shook their heads with the satisfied grief of those who had always suspected something. They said my bad luck had produced a thief. They said, what could you expect from an abandoned child with no proper blood, no proper upbringing? They said the worst things people say when someone else's tragedy makes them feel safe. I bore it. I had no choice but to bear it. The police found Pawan within 2 weeks. He had been spending the stolen money in a town 3 hours away, moving between cheap hotels and gambling dens, burning through the donations of 100 faithful people in a matter of days. When the officers brought him in, he had almost nothing left. The call came and Pandit G and I made the journey to the station together. I don't remember what I said to myself on that bus. I don't remember if I cried. I think I had gone to some place beyond crying, some dry, scorched internal landscape where feeling was too expensive. He sat behind the bars looking smaller than I remembered. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something hollow. He wouldn't meet my eyes at first. Pandit G spoke first, and his voice was not gentle this time. Do you know what you are, Pawan? He did not raise his voice. He didn't need to. You came to this woman as a child with nothing. No name, no family, no one to claim you. She was begging on temple steps when she found you. She was hungry. She was alone. She had lost everything. And she chose you. She kept you warm when she was cold. She fed you when she had nothing to eat herself. She cleaned this very temple for 18 years, day after day, her hands raw, her knees aching, so that you could have a life worth living. She gave you her heart completely and without conditions. And you used that love as a cover to steal from the house of God. The silence in that room was absolute. You want to know something else? Pandit G continued. You were never her burden. You were her reason. The day she found you was the day she decided to live again. And this is what you did with that gift. I looked at my son then. I let myself look at him fully, without flinching, without the protective numbness I had been wrapping around myself. I saw the regret. I saw it moving across his face like weather, real and too late. When I finally spoke, my voice was quiet. You could have come to me, I said. Whatever you wanted, money, a different life, freedom, anything, you could have come to me. I would have moved mountains for you. I have always moved mountains for you. That was never going to change. I paused. But you chose this. You looked at everything I gave you and you decided it wasn't enough to be honest with me. That's not something I did to you. That's something you did to yourself. He started to speak. I don't know what he intended to say. An apology, maybe. An explanation. I shook my head. I'm not here to hear your words right now, Pawan. Words are easy. You've shown me what your actions are. Live with them. I stood up. Pandit G stood beside me. And we left. I have thought many times about whether I should have stayed. Whether I should have wept and forgiven and promised to wait for him. That's what films tell us a mother does. That's the story we're supposed to perform. But I had been performing strength and patience and love for so long, I owed myself one honest moment. Letting him sit with the consequences of his own choices, that was the most honest thing I could give him. The temple recovered. The community rallied, quietly and without fanfare. Donations came in. The box was replaced. Life resumed its shape. My hands kept cleaning the brass lamps. My knees kept finding the cool stone floor of the prayer hall. I thought about Pawan every day. I won't pretend I didn't. A mother doesn't stop loving her child because he has broken her heart. Love doesn't have an off switch. But I stopped letting that love blind me to the truth of what had happened and what needed to happen next. He had to carry his own weight now. That was the only way anything would ever change. 6 months after his sentencing, I received a letter. It was from Pawan. The handwriting was shaky, nothing like the careless scrawl I remembered from his school papers. Ma, it began. Just that one word, and I had to put the letter down for a moment. I have been thinking about everything Pandit G said. And everything you said. But mostly I think about the things I never said, the thank yous I never gave, the ordinary kindnesses I walked past without noticing. I think about you sitting in that small room after I pushed you and watching me sleep on the floor, and I think about the kind of love that makes someone do that. I didn't deserve it. I didn't know what I had. I'm telling you now, not because I expect anything in return, but because you deserve to hear it. I'm sorry, Ma. I'm not sure sorry is enough. I don't think it is. But it's the truest thing I have. I folded the letter very carefully and placed it inside the small tin box where I keep the only photograph I have of Mayank. Whether I will write back, I have not yet decided. What I know is this: I was a woman with nothing who chose love anyway. I chose it on temple steps with an empty stomach and a broken heart. I chose it through years of hard work and small wages and neighborhood gossip. I chose it through drunken nights and cruel words and a theft that shook the ground under my feet. And even now, even after everything, there is something in me that does not know how to stop choosing it. That is not weakness. I spent too many years thinking it was weakness. It is the strongest thing I own. The one thing no one could ever take from me, no matter how hard they tried. Because you can steal money. You can steal trust. You can steal years and dignity and peace. But you cannot steal a mother's love. You can only destroy yourself trying.